as we grew up, I don't have too many memories of living in Shenley Heights. That's where my grandparents lived. That's probably why we had moved there first. But we moved to South Hills, which is a suburb of Pittsburgh, Brookline to be exact. And from Brookline, I remember going to the Brookline Elementary School, and then from there we went to South Hills High School. And believe it or not, until a few years ago, I still correspond with some of the students that I knew in the high school. Some of them have moved to Arizona, some moved to California, moved around, but somehow or other, I guess it's through a newsletter. One of my younger sister got a newsletter, and she would send me the address of the people, and I'd write, and they were kind enough to write back, and I corresponded until they passed away. And so I do have good memories of my high school, South Hills High School. I never dreamed at that time that I was going to be teaching school sometime myself, because I leaned towards being radio and journalistic work. And I cut that off just for a little bit. And I was telling you about living, we moved from 900 Rossmore Avenue, which was in Brookline, and it was a house that had been paid off. It was a small home, but my dad was a salesman with American Radiator and Standard Sanitary Company. He was a salesman and made pretty good money, and he had enough money that he decided to invest in a nice a brick home. It was stone, mostly stone, and a little bit of brick too. But we lived in 2330 Berkeley Avenue. That was my favorite home because it seemed like I was just met, maybe it's because I was older, I met more neighbors that I liked, and I found friends there that I liked.
How old were you then?
And at that time, let's see, I would be, I would be about, I would say I was about going into, I was about maybe ready to go to high school about that time. Yes, I was about ready to go to high school, because here's the way it worked. I'm going to tell you about the transportation. Today I'm 94 years old, and wisely I'm not driving a car because it's very dangerous. But anyway, back then it was a luxury to have a car. I want to tell you too about that. Nowadays, this may sound like sarcasm or jealousy, but nowadays most families, if the mom and dad don't either have a car separate or share a car, and the children don't have one, it's unusual. Back in those days, my two sisters and I, we thought it was a privilege to get to use the car, and we had to be very good and deserve to use it. And our first car was a Chevrolet, and I remember the first time my dad took me to get my license, and that was a real treat to drive that car for the first time. And getting back to getting to school, we didn't drive that car to school. That was unthought of. You know, the children drive a car to school today. There's no other way. But anyway, the way we got to school, to South Hills High School, was we lived on 2330 Berkeley Avenue, and we walked along Berwyn Avenue from Berkeley to Berwyn to what they call Pioneer Boulevard, where there was a bus line. And we got on that bus line, and that bus took us down a hill to a streetcar line. And we got on 39 Brookline streetcar line, which was on West Liberty Avenue. And to get to our high school, we had to take that trolley car from about 4 miles along West Liberty Avenue, yeah, West Liberty Avenue, to a big tunnel. Well, ordinarily, that tunnel is to get you into the city of Pittsburgh, but we get off the streetcar at that tunnel, walked up a huge flight of steps to South Hills High School, And a lot of times, if you were ambitious and if you were wise, you would walk home. It was only 10 cents for a streetcar fare, so it wasn't a case of trying to save money, but a lot of times we would walk home from that tunnel on the top of the hill there, the high school, for the exercise. But anyway, South Hills High School is where I met a lot of good people, a lot of friends, and formed a lot of relationships. I want to tell you about my best friendship. I'll have to name them. As Foster Janeway was my really close friend, and then I met a family had moved over to the United States from Finland, and they were a great family. They had a bunch of children, and they had, well, several boys and several girls, and it just happened that I latched on to George Rennie and his brother George. And so the foursome was Foster Janeway, I told you about first, that lived on Berwyn Avenue, right near where I lived. Then George and John were my other two. They lived down a street called Berwyn, which is about a good mile from our place. We walked to their house. But the nice thing about the Rennie family from Finland, their older brother was named David, and he had a real big limousine that we thought was neat. He was a driver. He would drive us, like I told you, you didn't have cars those days like children do today. He would drive us places in that big limousine. And we all tried to fight to get near the microphone in the back seat, because you could talk in the microphone and tell the driver where to go. Of course, he didn't listen to us because he was driving the car, but I remember that limousine. But another thing nice about the Rennie family, they had about 4 beautiful daughters. And this may sound strange, people that know me now, how I like to associate with them, but they were beautiful girls, and I'm not trying to brag that they'd want to see me, but I never dated one of them, and I'd heard that some of them wanted to date me, but I was interested. Our hobbies were Friday nights we played cards, and after we played cards, we went to a place where we drove golf balls into the night. We didn't play on a golf course, we just hit golf balls for about 10 cents a bucket. We did that. Then from there we went to bowling alley. I was very good at bowling. I mean, of course I made a lot of misses, but I did hit spares and strikes. But that was our hobby. In my high school, I miss those boys. They're all gone now, but I really enjoyed my 4 friends, my 3 friends. And, getting back to another thing, while we lived on Berkeley Avenue, there's quite a wealthy family who lived up on this Pioneer Avenue that I'm talking about, where the bus used to go down to meet the streetcar. I forget their name, but anyway, they owned a real nice tennis court about a half a block from our place down in the woods. And George and John and Foster and I, we were told by this family that if we would keep that tennis court pressed, it was sand court, after the rains, keep it pressed and lined, we had free access to it, except when their family wanted to play, and they said they'd give us plenty of notice. So I would say my most fun in the summertime was playing tennis. And we don't play like you see on TV today, where they hit the ball, trying to hit your feet where you can't get and all that. We played for fun, but we did hit the ball pretty fast sometimes. But I would say my favorite sport is tennis to this day, even though I'm too old to play it now. And that gives you a little idea of what we did. We kept out of mischief because we had things to do. Today, there are a lot of children that don't know what to do with their time, and if someone just teach them to play some sports, they wouldn't get into a lot of trouble. They're not all children, but a lot of children nowadays are getting into trouble because they're bored, and they need to go back to the good old days.